Welcome back to Aliens. My name is Naveen Reddy, and in this video we'll talk about Go language, or you can call it as Golang. Now Go is a language developed by Google and it is very promising. In fact, that's what JetBrains says. So JetBrains recently done a poll with 7,000 developers, and then these are their takeaways. So the takeaway is, so Java is the most popular primary language, as everyone knows about it, and then JavaScript being a most used overall language, and then Python the most studied language because it is easy to learn, and that's why we're getting so many views on Python series. And the most important one, the Go language. And Go is the most promising programming language. Now my reason of learning a Go language is not because of this, it's because of the new technologies. So Hyperledger Fabric promotes Go language as their primary language, right? And then there are certain technologies like Docker, Kubernetes, they are developed in Go language. So yes, it's a very powerful language, and let's learn something about Go in this video. Now Go is developed by Google, as I mentioned, and Go is a compiled language. Now when you say it's a compiled language, which means when you write a code, when you write a source code, you simply have to compile that, and that will generate a machine code directly, right? Now again, you might be thinking, hey, this is also done in C and C++, right? And that's right. So Go is actually coming from, it's taking their base from C and C++, not like Java and Python where we have virtual machines. We don't have that in Go language. So it will help you to improve the performance, right? Now, if you go to the official website of Go, which is golang.org, so that's the mascot of Go. And on this website, you will find the documentations and then the companies who are using Go now. And when it comes to documentation, it has a very small document, not because they don't have proper docs, it's just that they have a proper small document because Go is a small language. So when I say small, it's basically is minimalistic. So Go has some features and you can do a lot of things with that. So in fact, I read somewhere that Go is the future language for web. So maybe in future, there will be a lot of websites or web applications built on Go, even the web services. Now the next question would be, is it easy? Now compared to language like Java, yes, it is much easier because it has less features to focus on, and it don't have the confusing part which you have in Java. So yes, it's an amazing language to learn. And so if you want to learn this, of course, I will try to create a series. Let me know your thoughts. Do you want a series on Go? Because I'll be learning this for my own purpose, for my own projects, but then if you let me know if you want it. Now, if you want to experiment with Go, they provide you a playground. So yes, you don't have to do initial setup. Yes, we do need setup for if you want to make a project, but if you want to learn, they have a playground here. So you can just click on this playground. I will open a new tab with this. So when you click on playground, this is what you get. So this is where you can write a code, and you can simply click on run. What it will do, it will send your script to the server for the compilation because you don't have a setup on your machine, and then you will get the output. So basically you can run your applications, you can run your first code without any setup. So that's your code. Now if you know basics of programming, maybe Java, C or C++, you will be understanding some of it. So basically in Java we do create package, same way we have a package here. Sometimes we have to import packages, right? Because if you use some external features or if you want to use any feature, you need to import some packages. That's what we are doing here. We are importing a package fmt, which is for format. And of course, if you want to run this code, we have to write a main method or a function. So in Go, we call them as functions when it is an open part. The moment you write inside a class or something, you will be you can call them as methods. As of now, we do have a main function here. And inside this, you just printing something. So it is printing hello and something in different language. Let's use hello world. We can try that, right? And then this is printing it. Again, let's not go into depth of it. What is happening behind the scene as of now, just click on run. And you can see we got the output as hello world. Of course, you need internet connection for this, but if you are opening this website, of course, you have an internet connection with you. So that's how you write the first code. In fact, you don't even have to open Playground. You can see if you go to the website again, you can do that here as well. So whatever code you want to write, you can just write that code and click on run. You will get the code. Now, if you want to download Go, you can do it from here. You can use different IDEs here. You can use Eclipse. You can use VS Code. So whichever favorite IDE you prefer, you can use that. It's just that you need a Go compiler. Now, in terms of comparison between different languages, Go is faster. It has amazing feature, and the best part is it's a new language. Okay, when I say new, it's not that new. It's almost been 10 years now, but yes, compared to other languages, it's new. It has some awesome features to work with, and then The advantage would be if you learn Go, we have few developers available in the market who knows Go, right? So you'll be one of them. Welcome back everyone. My name is Navin Reddy and I hope you are excited to learn Go language. Now the thing is, if you want to learn a Go language, you have to do some setup on your machine. Basically, we require two softwares. The first one is a compiler. The second one is a IDE. Now when you say IDE, it stands for Integrated Development Environment. So basically, not just for Golang, if you are using any language, let's say Java, Python, you have to do that on IDE. It's not that you can't do it on a normal editors. It's just that when you work on complex projects, there are things beyond writing code, which is also debugging and getting the proper output, creating different files. So it makes sense to use a good IDE. Now when it comes to Golang, there are different IDEs available. You can use Eclipse, Atom. We'll be using VS Code for this series. And of course you have a choice, you can use any IDE which you prefer. So we have to install two softwares. The first one is Go compiler, second one is VS Code. And let's do that in this video. Now how do we install Golang compiler? It's very easy actually. Just go to Google and type download Go. It will take you to the official website of it, which is golang.org as a first link. Click on that. And this is where you can download Golang. Now you can see for different type of OS, we have different setups available here. So it doesn't matter which type of OS you use in your machine, it will work on all the OS. So the thing is, in this video, we are going to use Windows. So that's why we'll see how to install Golang on Windows. But then I will try to create videos for Mac and Linux as well. Now, since we are using Windows, we'll be clicking on this link, which is download for Windows. Click on that and it will download the setup for you. I already have a setup in my machine, so I will cancel this one. So that's the first thing you need. The second software you need here is VS Code. So if you want to install VS Code, you just have to go to Google and type VS Code download. It will give you the download link as a first link. And you can see we have multiple options. We can go for Windows, Mac or Linux. Let's focus on Windows here. And based on what OS architecture you're using, 64-bit or 32-bit, you can choose accordingly. So I'm using 64-bit and that's why we have set up here. You can click on this one. The moment you click on this one, it will download VS Code on your machine. And as you can see, I have both the setups available in my machine. It's time to install them. Now, is it difficult? Of course not. It's damn easy to install. So to double click on this tab and it will give you the prompt. We have to do the most difficult thing here, which is click on next. And then you have to accept the terms and conditions. You don't have a choice. Click on next. Now look at the path. The path is C drive Go folder. So this is where you will install your Go compiler. Of course, you can change this path, but let's stick to the basic. Click on next. And it will say install. Yes, I need to install this. It may take some time based on your system speed. It is asking for the password. So you can see it is getting installed. So that's done. You can see we got an option of finish. That means it is properly installed. And how do we verify this? But of course, we'll install VS Code in some time. But how do you verify the setup? And for that, you have to open your command prompt. Okay, so you have to open your command prompt and here we have to say go. The moment you say go and if it gives you all these steps, that means go is installed. Because if you don't have go installation, it will give you an error by saying go is not a recognized command. So you're getting this, that means go is installed. You can see we have so many commands available here. We'll see most of them, don't worry. But the thing is go is properly installed. And now it's time to install VS Code. Let's go back here. And click on VS Code user setup. Click on I accept the agreement, next, nothing to specify here, next. You can say add to path and then you can create a desktop icon, that's your choice. Click on next and then simply click on install. It will get installed in your machine. Okay, that's done. We got the VS Code. Click on finish and it will launch the VS Code application. So this is how VS Code looks, and if you can just click on new and then you can create a new file now. Click on new file and this is where you can write the Go code. So what you can do is you can write a Go code here. So in fact, instead of writing by myself, what I will do is I will just copy the Go code from the official website because we have not learned the syntax of Go yet. So I will say, let's go to golang.org and they have a sample code available on the first screen as well. I can just copy this code and go back to my VS Code, paste. That's our Go code, which will print something with some weird string. I'll print hello Telusko and then just save this file as telusko.go. Of course, you can name it anything, doesn't matter. So I'll be storing this on desktop. Click on save. So we got a Go code here and it is giving you option of installing Go extension. It will help you to create a new file. It will help you to understand the syntax. Let's install that as well. And while it is getting installed, let's go back to command prompt and let's run the code. So I will simply go to my desktop. And here, if you say dir, you can see we have a Go file. It's time to compile it, right? So the way you can compile it or run it is go run Telusko.go, and it will print hello Telusko. So that's done. So this is working. So that means in our machine, we were able to install Go, and then we were able to install VS Code, and it's running. So maybe in the next video, we'll try to run the code here in VS Code itself. Why to go to the command prompt and run. Maybe in the VS Code itself, we'll use that. And we'll see the output here itself. So that's how you install Go and VS Code on your machine. So there's one more important thing. The place where you have installed Go is in C drive. And here, if you can go to Go, you can see we have a folder called bin. Now, if you go to bin, this is the most important folder. We have two files. One is Go and second is Go format. Again, we'll see Go FMT later, but as of now, we are focusing on Go. So you're able to run your code because of this command. Okay, so this is very important. In case if you're getting error while running this code, that means your path is not set. So maybe at that time you have to manually set up the path for the bin in the environment variables. So normally it works. So let me know if it is working on your machine in the comment section. Someone will help you for sure. It's time to write our first code. Yes, we have written the first code and then we were able to run that. But then we simply copied the text from the official website and pasted it here. We don't know how it works, but then it was working. Now it's time to understand how that code works and what is that code exactly means. Now for that, what I will do is I will remove the entire code from here. Let's keep it fresh. So we got VS Code open and then this is our fresh page. I want to print one of the most important line in any programming language, which is hello world. In fact, you can't learn a language without hello world, right? So let's start with that. So I want to print hello world, and then when I run this file, I want to get the output on the console. Now when I say on the console or on the command prompt, you can actually open that in here. So in this CMD, you can run it and you can see the output. Now why to go for the external command prompt when you can use that inside the VS Code? So if you can just go to view, we have an option of terminal. Just click on that and you can see here you can access the terminal. So you can perform the commands here. In fact, let's verify if Go is available here. So if you say Go, we got list of data, that means yes, Go is installed and you can use it here. So let me just clear this screen. And now I want to write my first code. So what we want is we want to print hello world, right? So you can see when I type this and when I click on save, will it run? Let's verify. Let's right click. Let's go here and this file is there on desktop. So I will say cd desktop. That's where the file is. And here I will say go run Telusko.go, and if I click on run, you can see it is giving you some error. It says expected package and found hello. That's weird, but then this will not work. The thing is, in any programming language, doesn't matter is it C, C++ or Java, as we know that this is coming from C, C and C++. So if you want to perform the operation, okay, this is important. If you want to perform the operation, you have to call functions. So that's how programming works, right? If you want to achieve any task, you have to write functions. In fact, in some programming language based on OOPS, we say methods, but then as of now, let's focus on functions. So how do we write a function here? So I want to print, right? So there's inbuilt function available in Go called println. So I will say print. So there's an inbuilt function called as print, and you can just give a brown brackets, and then this should work, right? But then if you want to print a string, you have to put that in quotes. So in double quotes, you will say hello world, because that's a string you want to print as it is. You don't want this to be compiled, or it has to be converted by your compiler. Print is something which will be compiled, but not hello world, because this is a string I want to print on the console. But will this work? Of course not. See, the thing is, when I said this print is there inbuilt inside Go, everything which you will find inside something in Go is called packages. So whatever you use, maybe it is print or some other functions, let's say add, subtraction, maybe connect to the internet, all these functions are available in the packages. And if you want to use them, you have to import that package. Example, let's say if you want to cook something, you will open that particular shelf and you will take out the raw materials. In the same way, if you want to write hello world, and if you want to use some functions, we have to open some packages. We have to use those packages. But how do you use that? So it's very simple actually. You just have to say import, and the package name you have to mention in the round brackets. So you have to say round bracket, in that you have to mention the package, and the package is fmt. Now the question would be, how do we know that this print belongs to fmt? Now there are certain things you have to by heart. Fmt stands for format. So if you want to do something with the printing stuff, you will use fmt as a package. Now will this work? Not exactly, because maybe in your project or in your code you have multiple packages. So not just fmt, you have something called IO, you have something called SQL. How that will work? In that case, you have to mention that, hey, this print actually belongs to fmt. So in that case, you will say fmt dot print. Now you know that print comes from fmt. Still, this will not work. It's because whenever you want to start the execution, you have to start the execution from a point. Now, in a programming language like C, C++, Java, C#, you start the execution from the main function or main method. So if you want to execute this as well, you need a main point. So that's where the execution starts. And the way you can define that, so basically main is a function. So you can say main. So when you say function, you're defining a function now. So print is something which you are using. Main is a function which you are creating. So when you create a function, or we call them as defining the function, you have to give curly brackets open and curly brackets close. Now, if you're coming from other programming languages like C, C++, Java, yes, we know this curly brackets is supposed to be, I mean, some people do write on the same line, some people write on the next line. But in Go, it becomes compulsory to write on the same line. Example, if I say enter, this syntax will not work. So you have to go with this. Now, we have to mention that this is a function. And the way you do that is by saying func. So you have to say func, not just fun. Not like Kotlin. This is Go, so you have to use func. And here you can copy this code. This is what we wanted inside main, because that's what we want to execute. So this will work, but still you're getting error. The thing is, whenever you write a code, of course, in our code we wanted fmt, and that's why we said import fmt. But what if someone wants to use your code? So even they should be able to use your code using some packages, right? So the way you are using fmt, your code will be available in some package, and that's why it becomes compulsory for you to put everything in a package, your own package basically. So if you want to define a package, you have to say package main, and this is your main package. That's what you are saying main. Again, we can create another package as well, but this code should work now. Let's verify. So to do that, I will say go run Telusko.go, and this is working. You can see we got hello world. So that's how you write a code, right? You define a package which is main by default first initially, and then you have to import the packages. If you are using something in your code, maybe if you want to use some more features, you have to import some more packages. Maybe you can give a comma. So you can mention them here after fmt. Since we only have one package now, in fact, this round package is not required if you have only one package. And then inside this main, you can write your code. So we are saying print, which belongs to fmt package. So this works. What about the semicolon? So if you're coming from C, C++, Java, we have this habit of writing semicolons. We don't do that here. What about this curly bracket? So if I do that here, then you can see it will give you some bad words by saying missing function body. So this will not work. So that's how that's the syntax you have to write. Anything else? Yeah, this looks cool, and you can see we are able to run the code directly. But then in the first video, we have mentioned that Go is a compiled language, and we are not compiling it, and we are not even seeing the executable file. We'll see that in the next video. Once we have seen how to write hello world in Go, it's time to see some other features. In fact, if you are coming from other programming languages, you know what we do next. So basically, either we add two numbers or we talk about variables. So yes, you can add two numbers here. It's not that difficult. What we can simply do is we can remove this print. And of course, I will add these two numbers without using variables. We can remove that hello world and we can say 2 plus 3. And of course, when you run this code, it should give you the output. So I will say go run, and here I will say Telusko.go, and if I say enter, and you can see we got 5. So basically we can add two numbers. But then I want to focus more on variables here. So let's talk about variables. Now, first of all, why do we need variables? See, in the world of computers, it's all about data, right? So whatever software you build nowadays, it's all about data. Now, there are some data which has to be permanent. So you have to store that in your database or in a file, basically a permanent storage. And then we use some data for processing purpose. So we can call them as temporary data. We can call the other part as permanent. And of course, when you say permanent, we have database there, right? But for temporary use, normally we perform operations on that temporary data. And if you want to store that temporary data, where you will store it, and that's where we have variables. Now, normally they are called as variables is because you can change the value. And of course, right, that's what variable means. So when you say variable, it simply means you can change the value, right? That's what variable means. So how do we create one? See, for every variable, we need three things. The first one is the name of a variable. Of course, right, you need to know the name of a variable to access it. The second one is a type of a variable. Now, Go being a statically typed language, which means you have to specify the type of each variable. So now this type can be integer, this type can be a string, or it can be a float, it can be a Boolean value. And then the third thing you need is very important, the data, of course, right? So you want to store data inside a variable. So three things, the name of a variable, the type of a variable, and the data. So let's create a simple variable here. So as I mentioned, you need to create a variable, right? So let me just remove, or let me just put that format here. I want to create a simple variable. So when you say you want to create a variable, you have to show your intention. So let's say a variable name as num. So you can say num equal to, and you can assign a value or data basically, and you can assign any value, let's say 2. Now the thing is, you can see the moment you do that, you got an error. So it says there's a variable, yes, num, but it's not able to identify it because we have not created the variable yet. So normally we call them as declaring a variable. So how do we declare a variable? It's very simple. You just have to use a keyword called as var. So when you say var, it means variable. That's how you declare a variable in Go. So you can just simply save that, and you can see it is not giving you. So now this time we have a different issue. It's just that in Go language, it's very special. So if you're coming from other languages, let's say C, and if in C, if you import any package or if you import any header files, basically we say include the header file. And if you're not using that header file, that's fine. No one will say anything to you. Same goes for Java. If you import a packages which you're not using, if you're creating a variable which you're not using, no one will say anything. But Go says if you are creating a variable, make sure you use it. Otherwise, I will give you error. If you're importing a package and if you're not using it, Go will give you error. Let me show an example. The moment you remove this thing, so we are not using format, right? And the moment I say save, let me just comment this part. So this is how you comment the code. And the moment you say save, so you can see we got an error. It says imported and not used. So this is important. So whenever you import a package, you have to use that. Let me just uncomment it. Okay, so we will be using this. So what I will do is I will go to print and I will print the value for num, and that's our job is done. So basically now we are creating a variable and then we are printing it. So there's no issue. But will it work? Let's try. So I will just go back here and say run, and it works. You can see we got 2. Likewise, we can create some more variables. In fact, instead of having a name as num, let me just go with num1, and here I will say var num2, and we can have any variable name. Let's variable value which say 3. So we got 2 variables, num1 and num2, and we got 2 and 3. Now if you want to add those two numbers, yes, we can create another variable here. We can say var result is equal to, we can say num1 plus num2. Okay, and then instead of printing num, let's print result, because that's what we want to get the output as, right? So basically we got a new variable result which has an addition of 2 and 3. So basically we use these operators like plus, subtraction, which is minus. Then we can use asterisk for multiplication. You can use slash for division. And then you can just save this code and you can go back here and say run, and you can see you got 5. So yes, it is, you're able to add these 2 numbers. Okay, this works. Now what I want to do is I just want to, don't you think we are missing something? Because when we talked about variables, we said 3 things are important, right? The variable name, the type of variable, and the data. So yes, we have a variable name num1, that's fine. We have the data as well, but we have not talked about the type of it. And that's important, right? If you're coming from a language like C, Java, you know it, right? You have to specify the type of a variable. Now, in fact, in Java 12, now we don't have to, we can also use var keyword in Java, but then still we have to mention the type of it, right? So in Go as well, you have to mention the type. It's not compulsion when you assign the value. So you can see we are assigning a value directly, so it's not compulsory, but if you want to specify the type, you can do that. So just after your variable name, you can specify int. So this is how you define the type. So basically we have different types available. We have int, then we have uint, which is unsigned int. So instead of using int, you can use uint. The difference is uint supports the positive numbers and int supports the entire range. We can also go for float. We have float 64. We have bool, which is for boolean values. And likewise, you can specify the type for num2 as well, and that's how you declare a variable. So now we have all three. We have a name of a variable, we have the type, and then we have the data. In fact, if you assign a data, then this becomes optional. But what if you don't want to assign value now? So on line number 7, you're focusing only on declaring a variable. So you can see I'm not assigning a value. Now what will happen if I don't assign the value? So by default, the value for int value is 0. So if I add this to value, of course I'm adding 0 and 3. So it should give me 3, and you got 3, right? So by default, the value for num1 is 0. But we can assign that later. So I can come back here, I can say, hey, I don't want my num1 to have a value which is 0. I want it to be, let's say, 2. So you can do that, right? So you can assign the value later as well. And when in this code, you got 5. So this type becomes compulsory when you don't assign the value on the same line. Example, on line number 8, when you say num2, this int is optional. So even if you remove that, there's no issue, right? But what if I remove the int from line number 7? And that's where it will give you an error. It says unexpected new line expecting a type. So if you declare a variable without assigning a value, then it becomes compulsory for you to specify the type of it, right? So that's why it is optional when you assign the value, because from the value it can detect, okay, 3 is integer, so num2 becomes integer if you don't assign this int here. In fact, the awesome thing is you can do it for num2 as well. So you can say num2 is equal to 3. You can do that. But can you declare these two variables on the same line? Can we do that? Let's try. So I will remove this var and I will write on the same line, and you can see there is an error. It says unexpected comma at the end of the statement. So you can't actually create two variables on the same line by two types, but you can skip that. So if you know that both are the same type, you can do this. You can say var num1 comma num2, and you can specify int. So both these variables are of type int now. So you have a choice. Again, you can do it on two different lines, or you can do it on one line. So if you have a different type, then it makes sense to have different lines. But if you do same type, you can save the number of lines you have. But can we assign two values on the same line? So we are doing it num1 equal to 2, num2 equal to 3. But can we do that on the same line? Let's try. So what I will do is here, I will just say num1 comma num2, 2 comma 3. So that's how you can assign two values at the same time, right? So you can say 2 goes to num1 and 3 goes to num2. Just verify. Let's verify if it is working, and it works. That's fine. So you can do that. So that's how you can create variables and you can use them. Now, if you're coming from other programming languages like C, C++, Java again, this syntax looks similar, right? And it makes sense to use all this concept, and then there's something new, but still there's something you can understand. But then we got something new in Go, which is, what if you don't want to use var keyword? So let's say I'm just removing everything now. Let's say I want to create a variable which is result. So that if you want to get a variable result, you can simply say var result equal to 9. But don't you think you are creating a variable result and then the value is 9? Why to even use this var keyword? Can't we simply say result equal to 9? But the problem is you're not sure if the variable result is already created or you want to create new one, right? Because if it is already created, you can simply say result equal to 9. It should work. Now, if you want to do that here, if you want to say, hey, this is not just assignment, it's also a variable creation, you have to use a symbol which is colon. Now, when you say colon, it will take care of the creation and assignment. So this code is actually same as var result equal to 9. It's just that it's a shorthand. And if you go to online, if you see some Go code available, they might be using this syntax. So don't get scared. It's just that it's a shorthand for this syntax. So that's how you work with variables in Go. That's how you create and that's how you use it. But what if you want to create a constant? Because this is a variable, right? I want to get a constant now. So when I say constant, what I mean by that is, so let's say when I say var num equal to 9, and then here, instead of printing result, I will print num. And of course, this will work. You will get the output as 9 itself. But then can I change the value of num? Of course, right? It's a variable. So I can just go back here and I can say num is equal to 7. That's the new value for num. And if I go back and run, and you got 7, right? So we can change the value of it. But what if you want to create a variable whose value should not be changed? And that's why we say we can create a constant variable. And to do that, we just have to change from var to const. So const is a keyword which will make sure that your variable which you are creating is a constant. And the moment you do that, you can see we got an error on this line. It says cannot assign to num, right? Because it's a constant. So we can skip that. So that's how you create a constant. So we have variables and then we have a constant. So that's about variables and constant. In this video, we'll talk about loops. Now what is loop basically? So let's say if you have a statement or if you have a bunch of statements and if you want to execute them multiple times. What I'm saying is, let's say we have one statement. Yes, we can have multiple statements as well, but let's focus on one statement as of now. I want to print, let's say ln, I want to print Telusko. The moment you say you want to print it and if you want to execute this code, of course it will print Telusko for you. But what if you want to print this Telusko multiple times? So what do you think? So that's right, we can just copy this code and we can write it multiple times, right? So we can say once, then second, third time, fourth time, fifth time, and then if you run this code now, it will print Telusko. So you can say it is printing Telusko 5 times, and that's how you can do it. But what if you have a bunch of statements, let's say 10 statements or 15 statements, and you want to repeat it, you want to execute them repeatedly. So what do you think? Will you copy paste all the codes? And that will be redundancy, right? And redundancy is a crime. Don't do that. So never repeat your code. So what we can do is we can take this one statement, which is Telusko, and you can repeat it. And the way you can do that is by using a block. So you can just open the block and you can just close this block here and you can say, hey, just repeat this block. But how? So for that, we have to use some looping statement. Now in different languages like C, C++, Java, C#, in all these languages, we have 3 different types of loops. We have while loop, do while loop, for loop. In fact, in Unix, we have until loop as well. But in Go language, we have only one, and that's great, right? And everyone loves that particular loop, which is a for loop. So basically, when you say for, it means it will repeat the statement. So this is a loop. So for is a loop, and it will repeat the statement multiple times. And then with the moment you save this, oh, if you're coming from a different language, I know you what you're thinking. You're thinking this will not work because when you say a loop, we have to specify some conditions. We have to say assignment. Let's try what happens. The moment you go back and when you execute this code, can you see that? It is working. You are getting Telusko multiple times. It's just that it is not getting stopped. It is continuously printing that Telusko. If I scroll down, it's still going on. I just have to stop it because my machine will get hanged then. So you can say Control-C to stop the execution and then you can see it stopped. That's how you can repeat something in programming using loops. So as I mentioned in Go, we have for loop. But then you'll be thinking, hey, this is not something I want because this will print something in infinite way. I want to print it for limited set, let's say 5 times, 10 times, 100 times. Or maybe I want to do that based on some conditions. For different languages like C, C++, Java, we use while there. We have do while, which will check for the condition later. Go does everything with the help of one loop, which is for. So for has different types in it, okay? The first type is, which we have seen, where we don't have to specify the condition or increment something. This is one syntax. The next one is, what if you want to count? So let's say I want to count from 1 to 10. I want to print Telusko 5 times, let's say. In that case, you need to specify a condition. Now, when you say a condition, it simply means you will check. Example, let's say if you are giving money to someone, let's say you want to give 500 rupees. In that case, you will count 1. So let's say you have 100 rupees bundle. And then what you will do is you will give 1. So you will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically you apply a counter, right? In the same way here, we have to apply a counter and we have to check. Is it less than 5? Is it less than equal to 5? Then go ahead. So we can use a simple variable, let's say I, any variable name which you prefer, but I is go to counter. So let's say, let's apply a condition. The way you can do that is by using angular bracket equal to 5. So this is where you're saying, hey, if the value of I is less than equal to 5, then go for it. But then we have not created this variable I, and then we are not even incrementing it. That's what you have to do, right? You have to change the value of I. So for doing that, if I say save, you can see we got an error. It says the same thing. We have not declared the variable I. Let's do that. So I will go back here. I will say I is I colon equal to 1, shortcut. And you can see now, if I run this code, what do you think? Will it work? Now I'm going to say enter, but still you're getting multiple times. I want to stop it. So let me just do it manually. What is going wrong here? The problem is we are saying we are using loop. That's great. We are also specifying condition, but then we have to also increment it, right? So when you say 1, you will not simply say 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. You have to increment it. You have to say 1, 2, 3. So after every printing of Telusko, I can say I plus plus. That's how you increment. So basically plus plus is an increment operator in programming. So it is famous in different languages available. So I plus plus simply means increment. In fact, we can say I is equal to I plus 1. It's just that instead of doing this lengthy step, we can do it shortcut. So we can say I plus plus, right? And now it should work. I'm expecting this to work now. Let's say run, and it worked. Can you see that we got Telusko 5 times? In fact, with Telusko, I will also print the value of I just to check how the I is getting incremented. So let's save this and let's go back here, say run, and you can see that the value of I is also getting printed, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's great, right? So this is the second syntax we can use for for loop. The first one was infinite, where you can specify the condition inside the for loop. We have not done that, but you can do it. Or you can specify the condition with a for loop, which we are doing here. The third syntax is, don't you think we are writing these 3 statements? One, which is initialization. Second is the condition and increment. Instead of writing those things in 3 different lines, we can do that in 1 line. How? We can just write, so we can just cut this part and we can write it here itself. The same line with the condition, and this increment decrement as well, or increment part as well on the same line, and it should work. The only thing is you have to differentiate these lines with the help of semicolon. So you have to put semicolon after this one and after condition as well. So basically you are separating these three different statements with semicolon. Yeah, that's right. So you are not running away from semicolons in programming. We still have to use it. And now it should work. Let's try and let's run. And you got it. That's how you use for loop in Go. Yeah, so that's about it. So your assignment would be, you have to print numbers from 1 to 100. Okay, with the help of same concept. Just do it and let me know in the comment section. Now we know how to work with variables and constants, and it's time to focus on functions. Now see, we know that if you want to execute something, we have to use functions. So there are some inbuilt functions available in some packages, and then we can create our own functions. And then we have done that, right? In the code, if you can see the main function, that's a function which we have created. Again, the name was fixed, so because that's the start of the execution, so you can't change it. But can I create some more functions? Let's try. So what I will do here is, let's remove that, and I want to create 2 variables. I can say A, I can say num1, and we'll use a new syntax, which is shorthand. Let's assign the value, which is 5, and then we'll say num2. Let's use shorthand, let's say 4. So we got 2 variables here, right? I want to add them. Now it's quite simple. You can use a third variable, which is result. I can say result is equal to num1 plus num2, and then at the end you can print the value for result. I will say fmt dot print, and you can print result. The only thing is this p has to be capital. Yeah, and then you can run this code. I will just go back and you can see we got the output 9. So this works. But the problem is, in the main function itself, we are adding 2 numbers. So when you have a big task, you will break it down into small tasks. So what you will do here is, I want someone else to add a number for me. So I don't want to add a number here. Now, of course, you will say it's just 1 line, right? At this point, yes, for this example, we have 1 line. But what if you have a complex task which you want someone else to do it? In fact, the advantage would be, if you do it somewhere else, you can reuse it. So what I'm saying is, I will just go back here and let me get a new function, which is function add, and this add will take 2 parameters. Now what is parameters basically? See, we can simply say add, and then in this you can perform the operation. But then when you say you want to add 2 numbers, what are those values? I want to add this 5 and 4, right? I don't want to create my new variables there which will have a new value. I want to use this values there. So in that case, you will be calling that add. So instead of performing the operation here, you will call add by passing those 2 values. So you will call add by passing num1 and num2. So let me repeat, you are calling add function by passing those 2 values. But you can see it is giving you an error. It says too many arguments in a call to add. The thing is, when you defined the function, you are saying, hey, it is not accepting any parameter, but you are passing two parameters here. In this case, you have to mention, hey, there are two parameters which is coming here. So we can define that by saying x, or maybe you can have any variable, it doesn't matter. So we can say x int comma y int. So that's how you can specify the parameters. So this is what add function will be accepting from the main. And then once you got it, you can perform the operation, right? So how do you perform the operation? You can say var, I can have a variable which is, let's say, out. And here I can say I plus y, right? So here you can say x plus y. But then I want to return this out value. So this out will have a value. Let's say if you pass 5 and 4, it will have 9, right? So it has to return the 9 to the function which is calling it. So example, let's say if I want some work to be done, I will dedicate it to someone else. So I have some calculations I don't want to add by myself. So I will hand over that paper to someone else. Now that person will add those two values and give it back to me, right? Of course, he will not be using it for himself. So he has to return that paper. In the same way, if main is calling add to numbers, add has to return the value. In this case, if you want to return something, you have to say return, and you have to mention what you want to return. You are returning out. But we got an error. The thing is, when you accept the value, that's what you do here, right? But when you return a value, you have to specify the type of the return type. So what you are returning, is it string, integer? So where you will mention that? So just after your round brackets and before curly brackets, you have to mention here int. That is what you are returning here. Our job is done. So this will return something, and you can assign that to result, and you can print it. Let me just remove these extra spaces here. And now if I run this code, you can see we got the value 9. So this is working. So this is how you can create your own functions. Not just this, you can have any function with any name, and it can have any number of parameters. That's your choice. Not just int, you can have string, you can have anything you want. In fact, the amazing thing is, when you know you have two variables in as a parameter and both has the same type, the way we have done before, you can simply remove the type for the first one. So you can say x and y int. So both this variable will get a type which is of the last variable, which is y, which is int in this case. So that works. Now we know what is function. So basically function is a task which you can create and you can call it. So basically this is where you are calling it. And the amazing thing is you can use this function from anywhere. So if you want to call it from some other package, you can do that. Again, there are some restrictions. We have not talked about that yet. We'll soon talk about it. But it is accessible, right, with a different thing. In fact, we have to do something to achieve that. And we can reuse on the same package. So in the same package, if you want to call it, you can do it, right? So you can call this add multiple times. Okay, but then as I mentioned, every function will accept number of parameters, right? In this case, we are passing two parameters. So the question is, can I return two values? Is it possible? Let's try. So what I will do is, instead of having this function name as add, let me just make it as calc. And instead of say add, I will say calc. And then I don't just want to add those two numbers, I want to perform subtraction as well. So basically I want to achieve two operations in the same function. It is possible, right? We can create this as out1, and we can create one more variable here which is var out2, and this will be x minus y. This is quite straightforward. We can perform any number of operations we want. But the thing is, I want to return both the values, not just out1. I want to return out2 as well. Is it possible? It is actually. So you can say out1 comma out2. So you can return multiple values. Now that's not the case with different languages which we have, right? And so in C, C++, Java, we can't do that. But in Go, we have an option. We can return multiple values. But you can see we got an error. The error is because you are returning two values, but then you are specifying only one type here in a return type. So you have to mention both the types of the return values. So in this case, it is int. And still we have an error. Okay, so when you have two return types, we have to put them in round brackets. Yeah, because we have two, right? So you have to do that. Okay, so there's no problem on this function, but there's a problem in calling. Because when you call it, you are getting two values, right? Not one. And we are saying result. So we can say result1, comma, result2. So since you're expecting two values, why don't you assign it to two values? Let's just save, and then let's print result1. Oh, can we print two values in the same println? We can. So we can say result1, result2. So you have a choice. You can print the result values in new line or on the same line. Your choice. Okay, so this should work. Everything looks cool. Let's go back and run. and it worked. Can you see that we got 9 and 1? So 9 is because it is addition and 1 is because that's a subtraction value. In fact, just to make it things bit complex, what we can do is, instead of specifying, can we do this? Can we simply say return, and I don't mention the name of what we want to return. I can simply say return. It's not working. But then think about this. You are doing everything and at the end you say return. But what it will return? That's the question, right? Even your Go compiler got confused. Hey programmer, you're saying to return something, but tell me what I have to return. So what we have to do is, in the return type itself, you can mention what variable you are expecting to return. So once you define that here, you don't have to mention on this side. It's just that you don't have to redeclare them because we're declaring that once when you're defining a function. So you can define the variables here. This is what you're expecting. So this is what you got in the function. This is what you are expecting back. And you don't have to declare the variables because you're doing that here, out1, out2. It will assign the value and it will return those two values. This is again good to have features. It depends upon you which one you want to prefer. Do you want to go for the named return values, or do you want to return the values by yourself? So yeah, that's about functions. That's how you can call a function. That's how you can pass the values. That's how you can return the values. And that's all about functions. In fact, we'll be using functions and variables a lot in the coming videos. So now we know about functions and we know about variables. Now when it comes to functions, we can have multiple functions, right? The way we have here. So we have calc as one function, then we have main as a second function. Now can we have a variable which can be accessed in multiple functions? So what I'm saying is, for time being, what I will do is I will not be returning anything from this function, and we'll name this function as demo instead of going for calc. And let's not do anything here. Let's skip a blank function which will not accept anything. It's just a blank function. And then from main as well, let me just remove everything except this println. I want that in the code. So what I want to do is I want to create a variable. Now, if you create a variable here, so let's say in demo, I'm creating a variable which is var a is equal to 9. So we got a very simple variable, right? Now my question for everyone is just that, I'm not using that variable. That's what it's saying. Let me just print that variable here. I will say fmt dot println. Inside this, I'll just print a. Okay, so we got a variable and then we are printing it. So my question for everyone is, first of all, will this work? Let's try that. So I will ask you a question, but then before that, I just want to call demo. So you can see I'm calling demo. What do you think? Will it work? Let's try. Let's see. And yeah, we got the output. We got 9. So my question for everyone is, and once I complete the question, what you have to do is you have to pause the video, go to the comment section and answer it. Let's see who answers first and who answers right. And it's okay even if you make mistake. That's how you learn, right? Okay, so you got this variable a. So my question is, can I print the value of a here? So if I type a, since I'm not saving this code, that's why you're not getting any error, or I don't even know if there's an error in this code. So what do you think? Can I access a there? So if I say save, so pause this video, comment your answer, and then play it. So I hope you have answered. Let me just try. So the moment you click on save, you can see we got an error. It says undefined a, but this is defined, right? So this variable a is there. The problem is every variable has a scope, or you can say a level. So when you say a scope, it can be a function level variable or it can be a package level variable. So when you say function level, what it means? When you declare a variable inside a function, it is used in that function only. And that's why you can see here, when you print a, there is no error. But the moment you try to use this a outside that function, inside main, you got an error which says it's undefined. So that's the point. So by default, this var a is a function level. So it can be used in that function only. But what if you want to use a variable in multiple functions? How do we do that? And that's right, we can use a package level variable. How to do that? It's very simple. Just cut this part and go back here and paste. The moment you do that, now it becomes a package level variable because you're not declaring it inside a function, you're declaring it outside the function, right? Which we are doing here. And now you can see there's no error in this code and there's no error in this code. So what I will do, I will just run this code just to verify if it is working. And you can see we got 2 times 9 because 1 is because of demo and second is because of this main function. So that's how we can access this. Now with this, I have one more question. What if, let me just print something. I will say in demo, just to know that these two are two different statements. I will say in main, and then I will give a comma. That's how you can print multiple statements. Okay, so now my question is, what if I go back to demo, and here if I create one more variable, a is equal to 8. So what do you think, what it will print? Of course, there is no error because we have two variables of different scope. Yes, if you have one more variable here with the same name, then that will be an issue. So you can see the moment you save, you got an error here. It says a redeclared in this block. Previously declaration was here. So you can't do that. You can't have two variables with the same name in the same scope. But then this a here is in package scope. This a is in function scope, right, or function level. If I try to print this value a, what it will print? Will it print 8 or will it print 9? Again, pause the video, comment your answer, and then resume. So I hope you commented. Let me just go back here and say enter, and you can see we got 8. The reason we got 8 is because the function will always give preference to its own variable, the local variable basically, or you can say a function variable. If the variable is not available inside the function, then only it will go for the package variable. Example, in this case, main, we don't have a variable as a local or as a function level variable, and that's why it's going for the package level. Now the same concept is available in different languages. So we normally call these variables as local, this as global, but in Go we call them as function level and package level. So we have talked about functions, right? And then we can create our own functions, and then we can use some inbuilt functions. Now one of the functions which we have used till now is println, right? And this println is basically an inbuilt function which will print something for you, but it belongs to a package called fmt. Now we can create our own package. We have done that before. So we have a main package which we have created, and then we have fmt which is inbuilt. Now if you look at this function name which is println, the p is capital. Now can we write a small p there? Will it work? So if the moment you do that, the moment I say small p and if I say save, you can see we got error. So Go language is case sensitive, which means if it is capital in the definition, it should be capital when you use it. But then question arises why they went with capital letters, why not small letters? Because main, a function which we created has a small letter m, right? But println has a capital letter. The reason is there's a concept called exported names or exported functions. Now when you talk about println, it is defined inside fmt and we are using it outside fmt, right? So we are using this println in our own package. It is allowed because it is capital, right? So if we jump back to fmt, there are certain methods in fmt available. So one of the methods which they have there is too large. Now what too large does is it's check for a number, is it too large or not. It returns a boolean value basically. That method name is actually too large, which accepts an integer value, let's say 10. I know 10 is not a big number, but then this is an inbuilt function available. So println and too large both are the function in the same package, but we can use println, we can't use too large. The reason is too large starts with a small letter and println starts with a capital letter. And that's why when you define your own function, example in this case main, you can't access main outside this package. But what if you want to get a function which you want to access outside? So let's say my function name is demo. So if I say small demo, it is accessible only from this particular package. If you want to access from outside the package, you have to say capital D. That's how it works. So this is very important. So if you are using any inbuilt packages, or if you are using some libraries, you have to make sure that you can access only those functions which has capital letters, okay, at the start, capital letters at the start. And when you define your own package, and if you want your function to be accessed outside, then make sure you use also capital letter as the first letter. Welcome back aliens, my name is Navin Reddy, and in this video we'll focus on math package. In fact, we have seen a different package earlier. We have talked about fmt, using which you can print something on the console. So it has multiple functions. So when you say fmt and dot, you can see we have so many options here. We have used one of the function which is println. We can also use scanln to take the input. And then there are different methods available. In the same way, if you want to use something else, if you want to use some more functions, we have to import those packages. Now in this video, we'll focus on math function. Example, let's say you want to find a square root of a number, and of course you have to use a math package. Maybe you want to find a power, then you can use a math package. So if you want to, let's say if I have a number here, I will just go up and I will say we have a number, and I will say num colon equal to, and number is, let's say, 9. I want to find the square root of this. Yes, you can do it manually as well, so you can use your own logic and you can find the square root, and I would suggest you do that first. But then what if you want to use inbuilt function? And that's where you have to use a function called sqrt. Now sqrt will give you a square root of a number. But then you have to pass the value as well. So I'm passing 9 and it will return something. But then it is not openly available, right? If you want to use this function, you have to import the package. And the package name is math. So you have to just go up here, and then since we are using multiple packages, so I will just open that and I will close it here. Okay, so we have to add a package which is math. So in double quotes, you can mention math. So you don't have to put any comma or something, just give enter and mention the package name. And now in your code, you have a math package available. In fact, the moment I click on save, you will get error. So you can see the moment I say save, I got the error, plus we lost that package. And that's the thing with Go, right? So in fact, VS Code, I have added some plugins in VS Code. The moment you start typing something, it will give you pop-ups of plugins. Just install them. It will help you in coding as well. So you can see it is removing the math package, because when you say you are importing a package and if you're not using it, your VS Code will say, hey, let's remove that. But again, that's a Go feature. So if you want to use a math package, you need to use it in the code as well. So here, to use sqrt, we have to use a math package. So you have to say math.sqrt, and you can see there's no error now. But then instead of sending 9, we have to send num, right? That's why we have created that variable. And we got an error. The thing is, when you talk about square root, it only works with float numbers. So if you want to pass the input, you have to pass float. You can't pass int. By default is int, right? So manually what we will do is we'll define this as float. So I will say var num, and to define the type of it, you have to say float 64. Now that's a float number, and you can see you can pass it in sqrt. But of course this will return something, so we can take in a variable. So let's say result is equal to, and so you got your output in result now, but we got an error. It says result declare, yeah, because we are not using it. So let's use it. Let's print the output of it. So we'll say print fmt print ln, and then I will pass result. And that's it. That's so simple, right? So that's how you can use math function. And then to execute this code, I will go back here and I will say go run Telusko.go, and you can see we got an error. So we have to first navigate to desktop. So now let's execute the code. I'm in desktop now, and you can see we got the output, which is Telusko, because we are printing that here. We can remove that. We are not using that anyway. And you can see we are getting output, which is 3. So of course, if you run this code now, it will not print Telusko. It will only print 3. So that's how we got the square root. In fact, you can find the square root of any number. It's not just it should be perfect square. You can find of 12. And let's go back here, run, and you can see we got 3.4, and then it's a big number. Okay, but what if you don't want to print the entire string? I mean, you want to have the floating point till 2. So after point, I want to print only 2 values. In that case, we can do that provided we are using printf. Because if you want to specify the format, you have to use printf instead of println. And of course, if you're coming from C background, you know what I'm talking about, right? In C, we do use printf. In fact, in Java as well, we have printf option. You can use that. So here, I want to print result, but we can't directly print result there. So you have to print a format first. So you can type extra string if you want. You can say the output is or something. But as of now, let's not do that. I just want to print the output, right? So you have to give double quotes, comma, and you have to mention the variable name, which is result. Now in this double quotes, it should not be empty, right? There should be a purpose for it. This is where you have to specify the placeholder. Now, why do we need placeholder? So there are two reasons for this. One, you can specify at what point you want to print result. So example, let's say you want to print the output is this, thank you. So you're printing your output in between. In double quotes, you can mention the placeholder. So what I'm saying is I can say the output is, and then here we'll print the output. And after that, we'll also print thank you. So I want to print my output here, right? So that's a placeholder. And second is you can also mention the type of data you want to print. For different type, we have integer, float. We can mention the type here. Now, since we are working with float, you can go with F or you can go with G. Let's go with G, which provides better precision. And so this should work. Let's go back and run. And you can see we got the output is, and then the output, and we got thank you. But then I want to print only the 0.2 decimals, right? In that case, you have to say 0.2. So 0.2 simply means after point you will get 2 decimals. So I will just go back and run, and yeah, you can see that we got it. It's just that it is rounding it off, and we got 3.5. So and if I use F, and when you use F, you will get the exact point, which is 3.46. So yeah, that's how we can use printf, and you can print the format. So of course, if you have integer numbers, you have to use something else. And if you want to get more idea, you can just go to this website, which is golang.org, and you can find the FMT package, which has so you can see we have all those placeholders here. So this is basically formatted input output. So we can use t for boolean. So if you have boolean value, we can use t there. If you have integer, normally we use d if you're coming from C language, which is for base 10. But what if you want to go for base 8, which is octal? If you want to go for base 2, which is binary, in this case you will use %b and then %o. If for floating values, we can use f, which is for decimal point but no exponent. Yeah, that's we can use. And then if you have the bigger number, and then if you you can use g there if you have a very, very big number. And yeah, so that's we can use. In fact, we'll talk about pointers later. So we have all those formats and we can use them. Now, can we use something else from this package? Maybe I want to use something called float function and ceil function. So example, let's say if you have a value which is 3.4. So when we say round, so normally we round off numbers, right? So when it is 3.4, we say 3. And when it is 3.6, we say 4, right? That's what we do. But what if you want to get the float value? So it doesn't matter if you pass 3.9 as well, you will get 3 because you're getting the float value. So we have float, we have ceil. So even if when you say 3.1 and if you apply a ceil function, it will just go up for 4. So to achieve that in this, what I will do is, for result, of course, I want to apply the float. So I will say result equal to, and then I want to apply ceil or float. I will say, maybe I just want integer values. So here I will say result. Instead of result, I will say int result. And then here we can say, we can apply the float function. So I can say math dot. Let's start with round first. I will say round, and in bracket you have to pass result. So this will round it off and it will give you the integer value. And then instead of result, I will say int result. So instead of result, we can say int result. And let's run this code now. Let's run, and you can see we got the output. So we got round off. So 3.4 is 3, right? When you say round off. And of course, if it has different value, so let's say I want to find the square root of 19. In this case, you can see we got 4. Is it 4? It should be let's say 24. Then it should be 5, right? So that's the round off it will do. But what if you don't want the round off? You want to go for ceil, float or ceil. In that case, instead of using round function, which is rounding it off, we'll use ceil. So ceil will just go up. So of course it will give the same answer, which is 5, because it is going up. And then you can also use float, which will give you the bottom value, which is 4. So in math package, we have so many functions available. Just try them out, and that's how you can use different packages and you can perform the operation. Talking if else and switch. Now, if you are coming from language like C, C++, Java, C#, you know what I'm talking about, right? We have if else and we have switch. But then why do we need them? The thing is, when you say you are working on a code, or if you're writing a program, which means you're trying to add logic to your code, right? So basically, you are trying to understand the flow of your application. So based on user event, based on some data, you will change the flow of your data. So basically, based on the condition, if it is true or false, you will do different things. Or maybe sometimes not just 2, maybe they have different options. Maybe you have 5 options. So let's say if I ask you to greet someone, so let's say you have to say good morning. If it is morning time, you have to say good afternoon, you have to say good evening, good night. So based on the time and situation, you will greet them, right? So that's something you want to achieve here. And we can do that with the help of if else or switch. So let's start with if else, and how do we use them? Now, first of all, to use that, I will be simply using a variable. In fact, let me just print something so that I will be using that FMT, otherwise it will just remove it. So I don't want to print anything, so I will just go back and here. So I want to create a simple variable, and I will say num, and the value for num, let's say, is 1. Now based on this value of num, I want to print something else. So let's say I want to print hi if the value of num is less than 5. I want to print by if the value of num is more than 5. So what exactly we want to do is we want to say print, and here I want to print hi if the value of num is less than 5, and I want to print by if the value of num is greater than 5. So we got an error. In fact, with this, let me also print the value of num so that we'll know what is happening. So now if I run this code, let me just go back here and say run, and you can see we got hi 1 and by 1. Okay, we got in the same line because we are saying print, not print ln. So you can see we got hi 1 and we got by 1, but I don't want to print both. I want to print only one based on the condition. So if you want to achieve that, we have to use if. Now if is a way you can check for the condition. If it is true, then it will print the block, otherwise it will go for the next block. So you have to specify the condition. We'll say if num is less than, so that's how you specify less than 5, and we have to open the curly brackets, and you have to make sure that you put this statement inside if. So what we are doing is we are saying if this is true, then print hi. Otherwise, now how will you say otherwise? In fact, this will work. So it will print hi only when the value of num is less than 5. That doesn't mean it will not print by, because by is outside if. So irrespective if is giving you true or false, by will get printed. So what I'm saying is if I run this code, you can see we got hi and by both, because the value of num is 1. But what if I say the value of num is 9? Now in this case, it will not print hi because the value of num is not less than 5. But then I don't want to print by in both the conditions. I want to print by only when this condition is false. In that case, you can say else. So if is true, if this is true, then it will execute the if block. If it is false, it will go for the else block. So only one of them will be executed at a time. So you will open the curly brackets here, and you will close it here. So that's how you specify if and else. Okay, there is a mistake. You have to put that on same line. So Go follows this pattern, you know. So if you want to use else, you have to use it with the ending curly brackets of if. And I think it should work now. Let's go back and run, and you can see it works. So we got by because the value of 5 is is greater than 5. But if I say 4, and if I run this code, you can see we got 4. We got hi and 4. But what if I say 5? What do you think? If I make this as 5, will it print hi or by? So what you have to do is you have to pause the video, comment your answer, and then we'll see. So the thing is, when you say num is less than 5, which means it will only check till 4, okay? Because when you say less than 5, it is 4. So in that case, it will print by. So if you run this, you can see we got by. But if you want to check till 5, then you have to give equal to. So num should be less than or equal to 5. Now it should print hi 5. Yeah, that's great, hi 5. So this is working. So this is how we use if and else. But then what if you have multiple statements? I mean, if you have multiple conditions. So something like this. So I will have the value of num as 1. And if it is 1, I want to print in the word format. So for 1, I should print O-N-E. For 2, I should print maybe TWO. How do we do that? And in fact, we can do that here as well. So we can check if the value of num is equal to 1. Now that's how you compare. You have to use double equal to, because if you use single equal to, that becomes an assignment operator. And you can see we got an error. So it says syntax error, assignment num equal to 1 used as a value. Okay, that's right. So I want to check for the condition. So we got a condition here. And then if this is 1, I'll be printing 1. And if that's not the case, if it is 2, then I'll be printing TWO. But how will you use second condition here? Can we specify in condition in else as well? Yes, we can. So we can say else if, and again we have to say num is equal to 2. In that case, you will, instead of printing by, you will print TWO, and then I don't want to print num. So that's how you do else if. So in else as well, you can check for the condition using if again. But what if it is 3? Then in that case, you can also write else if and then again else if, so you can check for multiple values. And then at the end, let's say if you're checking till 5 and then the value you're inserting is 6, In that case, you can do an else part. So else, if nothing is getting matched, I'm going to say mistake, we write on the same line. And here I will say fmt.println, and here I'll print none. Right, so it is now 1, 2, or none. Now if you run this code, of course it will print 1 and you got 1, but what if you say 3? Now in this case it is not matching with 1, it is not matching 2, so it will print none. If you say 2, of course it will print 2. So that's how we can use else if and else. Okay, now there is one more thing. What if you want to check for a given number is even or odd? Now that will be assignment. If you have done that before, that's great. So that will be first assignment, how to check even odd in Go. The second one is I will give you 4 values. You have to give me the greatest of all the numbers. So you have to find the maximum value out of it. So the value is, let's say 5, 6, 2, or 1. So you have to give me output as 6 because that's the maximum value you have. So that will be assigned. But then I don't want to stop here, because instead of using if else, we have one more example here. The problem is with if else, what if you have multiple checks? So we have 1, 2, let's say 3, 4. So sometimes it is easier to use something else than if else, because here you are checking for the condition. Because I'm not doing any operation here. You can see that I'm just checking for the value. If that is the case, you can also use switch. Now how switch works, so you can comment this part because I don't want to use this. So if you have num, what we can do is we can use switch. So let me just show you how switch works. So you simply have to say switch num and open the brackets. Now this is your switch block. Now if you want to check for the cases, if you want to check for the condition, instead of using a condition, you can simply use case. The same syntax is there in C as well, C, C++, Java, C# as well. Yeah, it changes when it comes to Kotlin, but it's the same in Go. So I will check for the case 1 because we have multiple cases. If it is 1, I will print 1, and that's it. And then we have to go for case 2, and here we'll print 2. I mean the same thing we have done here in if else. And then we can have multiple cases. You can have case 3, case 4, case 5. But what if none of these cases are matching? Now in that case, you will use default. So you will give colon, and here I will print. So this is something you have to remember. When we work with if else, you have to use else for default one. Or for switch, we have to use default. And we'll say none. So now this one looks almost same as if else. It's just that we are not checking for the condition. So this is much more readable. And let's see if this works. And if you run this code, you can see we got 2 because that's the case. It's so simple, right? So what it's doing, it is checking for the cases. So if your value is 2, it will check for the case 1. Is it matching with 1? No. It will simply jump to case 2. If it is matching, yes, it will print this 2, and then it will come out of switch block. Okay, now there's a twist. Now if you're coming from C, C++, Java, C#, we know this thing, right? Whenever you work with switch, you need to use a break statement. We don't have to do that in Go, right? So because it says if your case is matching, that's it. You're coming out of switch block. So that's how you use switch in Go. In fact, you can use one more example, which is awesome. So you can just you can simply go to this website, which is golang.org, and then they have some awesome tutorials. And this is one of the examples which I liked. So what I will do, I will just copy this code because this code looks interesting, and because we all wait for Saturday. So today here is Thursday. So what this example is, so this example simply says we are printing when is Saturday, which is day after tomorrow here, because today when I'm recording this video, this is Thursday. So of course I'm waiting for Saturday as well. Everyone waits for Saturday. And then so what you're doing is we want to check when is Saturday. So if Saturday is today, of course we will print it's today. If Saturday is tomorrow, we'll print tomorrow. If Saturday is coming in next 2 days, we'll print in next 2 days. If by chance you're watching this video on Monday or Sunday, it's too far, right? So that's what we want to do here. I hope you're not watching this on weekdays, like especially on Monday. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but that's it is. So how do we do that? How do we check today's date? So basically we have this time package available. So basically we are looking at different packages, right? We have FMT, we have math, we have time. So using this time package, you can see we have a method or a function called as now. So now gives you the current time, but then we don't want everything. We just want the weekday. So what's the day today? So it's Thursday, so it will give you Thursday. So today is Thursday, and then we have to pass that time. So we are passing Saturday here, and we are matching that with today's date. So is it today? If it is today plus 0, then it is today. If today plus 1, that's tomorrow. If today plus 2, it's in 2 days, and default is too far. Let's verify if this works. I will just say save and go back here and run. Okay, we got an error. So there's extra brackets. Let's run this, and you can see we got when is Saturday? It's in next 2 days, right? So you can see look at my smile, and you can guess, right, when is Saturday. So that's how you can use switch, and that's how you can use time package. So I would recommend you to explore time package. In fact, you can also print. So you can also print time dot now just to understand what it prints. So you can say it prints the entire time. So it is this is today's date. This is time, and this is the time zone where I'm in. So yeah, so that's how you can use now, and you can fetch all these values. You can fetch year, you can fetch date, you can fetch time. So explore this, and that's it on this video. So I hope you are enjoying this series. Let me know in the comment section, and do subscribe for further videos. Bye bye.